You're now listening to the Fantasy Filler Podcast, where we put you in the driver's seat every week, all year long. In the NASCAR racing world, from top news stories, latest results, and best fantasy lineups, we'll have you up to speed and out in front before the drop of the green flag. So let's dive in with our host, Vanilla Wafers.
And now we just have one race left here in the West Coast swing, and it is at Phoenix Raceway, the same racetrack that will hold the championship race. But first, we have the first race here at Phoenix, which will be the fourth race of the 2023 season. A lot of drivers are trying to end on a positive note here during the West Coast swing. Which drivers are going to be some of the top dogs? Which drivers will be in the top 10? And which drivers do you want to take a gamble on? We're going to be covering all of that, plus some interesting news that have come out in the NASCAR racing world. All of that to be covered here today on the Fantasy Filler Podcast. I hope you guys are doing really well. This one's not going to feel rushed. I don't have to go to the racetrack, so we don't have to worry about that. We're just here just to focus on what exactly we want to talk about here for the race weekend, the rules that are going to be implemented, the new package that we're going to have here at Phoenix now that they're doing short track packages. But before we dive into all of that, let me introduce to you our guest for the day. He is from the podcast Johnny on the Track. He also has a YouTube channel, Johnny on the Track, talks about all stuff NASCAR related, as well as the best bets to make on every single race. Here we have Johnny. How you doing today, Johnny?
Good, Tyler. Good to be back on. Excited to talk Phoenix, talk the new package, like you said. A lot of news around that. I feel like it should be a good race, but I thought that last weekend at Vegas, and I know your guy won, so that was good. But in terms of the overall race,
he did.
I don't know. I would have expected more. I was at that race last year, and it was amazing watching like Kyle Busch and Chastain and Truex and just a bunch of guys battle back and forth. But I do think Phoenix, I think possibly this new package, a lot of people are high on it. I can see why. So, a lot to be shown there. But other than that, just excited and get ready, ready to talk some NASCAR. Let's do it.
That was the one thing that did concern me, because obviously everyone knows this. I was there at the racetrack, and you're going to actually be at New Hampshire, it sounds like, doing the same program with Live Fast, so I really hope you enjoy that. I had an absolute blast with that. But the one thing I did notice, you're right, only like one or two drivers really dominated. We didn't see that too much at the intermediate tracks early in the season. Hell, even during the summer stretch. Then they're near the end at Homestead, Phoenix. Now we see it once again here at Vegas. There's a little bit of concern there. Does that start to worry you now that we're going into 2023? Many intermediate tracks, those races that were the best races of 2022 could now be kind of mediocre races in 2023. Do you have that fear, or do you think we've just had bad luck and just had drivers who've just figured out the racetrack?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think more time will tell. I will say, Auto Club delivered a decent show. Not a great show, but a decent show. But, you're right. You look at Vegas last year. It was a great race. The Kansas races, both Kansas races with Bubba winning and Kurt Busch winning. Those were some really good, solid races. So, look, I feel like what we're starting to see is, if you're out front and you get that clean air, away you go. And that was kind of the thing with the last package. I do feel like maybe there's a little pause for concern, but the way I see this, Tyler, is it continues to change. It continues to change each week of who's the best team out there. Like we saw Richard Childress Racing and Kyle Busch have a lights out race at Auto Club, right? And then the next week at sort of a similar track. I know it's not a typical cookie cutter intermediate to say, but then they were slow. Then you see Hendrick be lights out fast. So, and then you look at the super speedways, and RFK seemed like the class of the field along with a lot of the Fords. I know Stenhouse ended up winning, but man, Logano, Keselowski, Buescher, Priest, all out in front. And then the short track we saw, same thing. It came back to Richard Childress again. So I will say, although there's a little pause for concern on the fact of the racing and maybe somebody dominating a race, it looks like it's going to be a new guy each week. So, I think that's fun. I think, if you feel confident going into it, and I know Byron was, it seemed Bowman was, I think you're going to have a good shot. That's kind of what it seems to me so far.
Yeah, you're making a real good point. That's one thing that still keeps me hopeful is that it's not the same driver and team that's dominating every single race. Yeah, we've had completely different teams shine at every different racetrack, and that's maybe the reason why on some polls that I've made that people are still really enjoying the races. As Vegas did not have many passes for the lead, still 72% of you on YouTube agreed that you did enjoy the race at Las Vegas. So we'll see who's going to be standing out here at Phoenix. Maybe the drivers like in the Ford camp that struggled could be really good here at Phoenix. We just don't know. So there's still unpredictability here in the next gen, and you made a really good point on that. With that being said, this is going to be the first race with the brand new short track package. I'm trying to remember all that entailed with that short track package. I know that we have a smaller spoiler. We've gotten rid of the undercarriage that we're used to seeing for all the intermediate tracks. So definitely a brand new package. Are you hoping that this is going to bring more excitement to the short tracks? Because last year, ironically, those were the most boring races of the year.
Yes and no. Yes to the fact that you're right. A lot of the short tracks were pretty boring. Bristol wasn't great. Bristol Dirt wasn't really that good. Both Richmond races came down to strategy, which again, I mean, that's fine. A strategy race can sometimes be good. But I mean, it wasn't much passing. The Martinsville races, that last Martinsville race, the one in the playoffs was good, but that was only because we had a late restart and it was in the playoffs, so people were just doing crazy stuff out there. So I think there's potential that this could strengthen the racing and really help us out. The no part is, well, Tyler, I've made a lot of bets based on statistics we've seen on, with the previous package. So this could screw me up. This could screw a lot of people up. I've actually seen a lot of people go light this week and say, I'm taking it light because I don't know what this package is going to entail. I am in the mindset that I still think, I don't know, I don't think it's going to change that much. I feel like the teams that have shown to have good short track packages are going to continue there. Just because, like, as you saw last year, the Toyotas on the road courses, you would have thought that they would get better and better over the season. They sucked. They continue to suck at those courses. So I feel like, maybe it's a learning curve for everybody on these short tracks, but we saw last year Ford kind of had the upper edge on these shorter tracks. Ford and Toyota, I'll say. So I think it'll stay there. Kind of set the field a little bit, but I still think they're gonna stay on top. So that's why I'm still confident, but I could be totally wrong, and who knows? Maybe an Eric Jones can come out and figure out this package quick and stun the field. I mean, that's there's a possibility there.
That's true. He did shock everybody in the Bristol race last year. So much craziness happened, and then all of a sudden we had the 43 car in. Oh no, I'm sorry, Chris Buescher. Eric Jones won at the Southern 500, but you get what I mean. A surprising driver that wasn't even in the playoffs was able to catch the victory there in the first round. So we do not know what's going to happen here with this new package, but I'm hoping that we get more exciting racing. Another thing that was added on was 30% less downforce. So hopefully, maybe, just maybe, that the leader's not going to have such a huge advantage against the rest of the field that we don't see any passing than we have last year. Also, some big news that came up here in the racing world. There was some big announcements going on here throughout the weekend. William Byron is returning to Kyle Busch Motorsports down the Truck Series for 3 races, those 3 races being in the number 51 truck, and it will be Starlington Raceway May 12th. He will also race the North Wilkesboro race on May 20th, as well as the dirt race on April 8th. So those are the 3 races that William Byron has added on with Kyle Busch Motorsports. Anthony Alfredo from Live Fast Motorsports will be running 2 races for them. I think their first race is going to be
run that New Hampshire race, Anthony. Yeah. Come on, baby, let's go. That'd be hype.
Oh, that would be the best thing ever. Is he racing at New Hampshire? I know he's racing at Richmond.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Richmond and New Hampshire, similar tracks. I'd be like, let's go. I'd feel kind of confident that we could get maybe a top 30 or something.
Yeah, well, who knows? I mean, with Live Fast Motorsports, they've been trying to get top 25s. Last weekend, there wasn't too much craziness going on, so they finished 32nd. But I talked to Matt Tiff last week, and they are really confident in what they've been able to do with that 78 car. Last year, they were finishing around like 36th, 35th almost every single race. Now their worst finish has been 32nd. All the other finishes have been in the top 30. So I'm pretty excited to see what they're doing. And Anthony Alfredo gets another opportunity here in the Cup Series. Races with BJ McLeod Motorsports down in the Xfinity Series. So for him to get 2 races here in the Cup Series, I'm happy about that. Jonathan Davenport will be running the Bristol race for Colleague Racing's number 13 car. So they will have a 3rd entry in the Bristol Dirt Race. Jenson Button, a Formula One driver that most of you may know because he was a 2009 Formula One world champion, will be racing in 3 races this year. First starting off at Circuit of the Americas, and then he will compete at the Chicago Street Course as well as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course for the number 15 team of Rick Rare Racing. Meanwhile, JJ Yaley's trying to figure out all his remaining races for the season. They're still trying to finalize all that. And the last bit of news is that NASCAR has decided to use the choose rule at all races. At first, it sounded like it was only going to be at super speedways, but now they are going to introduce it to road courses as well. Lots of news here this week, and I'm really excited for a lot of it. Which one pops out the most for you, Johnny? I mean, I threw like everything out there for you, so it's kind of hard to just pick one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a couple good things here, right? I mean, we've got some big driver announcements from, past F1 champions, and even Anthony Alfredo, taking it back to the Cup. I think that's a good thing. So I mean, that news is all big. You love to see, like, you and I were talking before the show, right? Like COTA is becoming like another Daytona 500 in its own sense. So I mean, I think that's big news. I think, like you mentioned, the choose rule is interesting. We were talking before on that as well, that, the choose rule, they're continuing to try to make it more, more drama, right? And I think, NASCAR and the broadcast booth can always kind of resort to that, like, it seems like Hamlin, is he gonna choose, to be behind Chastain? Is he gonna line up next to him? So I think they like that sort of thing, and rightfully so. Yeah, I can't pick of like what's the biggest news of the week, to be honest with you. I will say though, that 15 car, we better watch for that 15 car, because if we remember last year, and I apologize, I got like somebody doing the back here.
Yeah, no worries. I was like, are you cleaning while doing the podcast? Holy cow, being multitasking over there.
No, Joey Hand in the 15 was fast last year. I think that's going to be a car to watch out for maybe some top 10s this year.
I'm so glad you mentioned Joey Hand, because, yeah, that was the one thing we noticed. I don't think he was fantasy value, but just to see a brand new team that you never see running up front, able to get some stage points here and run around the top 20, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal, especially for these smaller teams. We haven't heard from that in years, unless they do like a crazy pit strategy. That was the only time we ever saw that, and that wasn't the case. They were just running really good. They had a good driver in there, and now they have that opportunity with Jenson Button now in the 15 car. It's going to be very interesting to see for sure. And one last thing, and that is the situation regarding Chase Elliott. We all know the situation. He was in a snowboarding accident, and it is now confirmed that he's going to be sidelined for at least 6 weeks with a broken leg. The drivers who will be covering for him in the meantime will be Josh Berry at all the oval racetracks. However, at Circuit of the Americas, it's going to be Jordan Taylor. So 2 big names right there. I expected Josh Berry to be running in those oval races because I felt like he did a decent job for what he had to work with at Las Vegas. But Jordan Taylor, that one was the biggest surprise for me. And again, Circuit of the America, Daytona 500 feel. You just get these big drivers out of nowhere who just want to run in NASCAR. And now we got Jordan Taylor jumping into that 9 car. So really cool things happening for such an unfortunate situation. We obviously want Chase Elliott back behind the wheel. But I think the drivers that they're substituting for him are still good add-ons. Are you excited for Josh Berry and Jordan Taylor getting this opportunity? Or are you just mostly just wanting to make sure Chase Elliott gets back?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, I think there will be something to be said about Jordan Taylor. If you look at his numbers, he's very good at Coda, like very good. He's won there multiple times. So, I think the 9 car in that sense is in good hands. I mean, we know what it is on road courses, and then you put a talented driver in like Chase Elliott, and then in this case, Jordan Taylor. I think the 9 is going to fare well on the road courses, even without Chase. In terms of Josh Berry, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be his main focus. He's trying to win a championship in the Xfinity Series to get a shot here.
Right.
So I think it's going to be one of those things where you're just going to see him ride around. A top 20 day will be good, and you'll kind of wonder, like, man, if I thought that 9 car had a ton of speed, and he's finishing 19th, 25th. It's a learning curve. He does not want to wreck Rick Hendrick's car. I can assure you that. Not when he's the guy that runs it full time. Wrecking Dale Jr.'s car, when Dale Jr. entrusted you and put all the trust and the resources in you, that's a little different. But wrecking a Rick Hendrick car, where Rick Hendrick is basically just saying their second best driver, he's either the 1 or the 2 there, wrecking that car, that's difficult. So I always find in this situation, or in situations like these, when someone's subbing in for an injured driver, they're just trying to make laps out there. That's all it is. So, but Jordan Taylor should be a good show. He's going to put on at some of these road courses. Definitely Coda.
Yeah. And you know what? This could be a big opportunity for Josh Berry as well. Obviously, he doesn't want to wreck the car. We know he's going to be trying to take care of that equipment as much as he can. The main goal here is to keep the number 9 team just in striking distance regarding the owner's championship. Let's say for some reason Chase Elliott's not able to get that victory, and he does not get the waiver, which I'm almost certain he's going to get that waiver. We want to make sure that that 9 car is still in shape points-wise to make it in for the owner's championship. Now, with that being said, Josh Berry could be a situation like Alex Bowman when he covered for the number 88 car. He had a fantastic run at Phoenix, which gave him an opportunity to run in that number 88 car right when Dale Earnhardt Jr. stepped out, and now he's a full-time driver for Hendrick Motorsports. Eric Jones in the number 18 car when Kyle Busch was sidelined for many weeks due to a broken leg. We had him perform really well at Kansas that year, and then everyone was just waiting, when is Eric Jones going to come to the Cup Series? He is ready. And the list goes on. Jamie McMurray with the 40 car. He won in his second attempt, subbing in for Sterling Marlin, a driver who got injured, who was running for the championship. So many things could definitely weigh in these next 6 weeks. Biggest thing, though, we want Chase Elliott to come back. But for Josh Berry, I'm thankful for the opportunity. And Jordan Taylor, it's great what they're doing here at these road courses. But before we move on to all the road courses, we're looking way ahead. We want to focus on this race here this weekend, the United Rentals 500 at Phoenix Raceway. Which drivers are going to do good? Which drivers are going to struggle? Which drivers do you want on your fantasy team? We're going to talk all about that here. So without further ado, here is our top fantasy picks for the United Rentals 500. Alrighty, guys, so you guys already know the drill. We have 15 drivers that we're going to talk about here. 5 of them we think are going to be top picks, drivers that are going to score a lot of fantasy points, as well as be contenders for the victory. Then we're going to talk about another 5 drivers. We consider this the top 10 picks, 3rd or 4th. These are drivers that we feel like can score some stage points here and there. Maybe not running for the victory, but they're going to help you out greatly for your fantasy group. And then drivers to take a gamble on. We don't expect these drivers to do great at every single race, but we do want them to come in from time to time to sub for some of these drivers, because you can only use one driver 10 times in the regular season. So these drivers are big make or breaks for your fantasy roster. We're going to start it always with top picks. Johnny, I'm going to give you the first pick on who we should go for here this weekend. Which driver do you think is going to be running for the victory, as well as scoring a lot of fantasy points for people's fantasy teams?
I got to go Joey Logano. I mean, I think it's easy pick here. Coming off a really frustrating and bad race at Vegas, one of the only guys, I think maybe the only guy to DNF. Don't tell that to Logano, because I guarantee he is not going to be happy if you tell him you were the only car to DNF last weekend. He ran fast here, both the Phoenix races last year. He had a lights out race to win the championship. here at, the most recent Phoenix race. And on top of that, and you and I talked about this before the show, Tyler, is Logano, I mean, there's no learning curve for him. So it doesn't take time for him to adjust to things. If it's a new package, I don't care. I like Logano, and Logano, he whatever you give him, he will find a way to make it work. The first time, right? The first time thing, basically. Logano's won the last 4 of whatever the first time thing is, whether it be Gateway back on the Cup Series, whether it be the Clash, whether it be Bristol Dirt. Logano just seems to knock it out of the park in that situation. So Logano, to me, the number 1.
Yeah, I don't think there's really no arguments there. I think the only thing that could be a little concerning for people is the fact that he's led about 500 laps in the fall race here at Phoenix in the last 4 races. And then compared to the spring, he has only led 64 laps. With that being said, that does include a victory and nothing but top 10 finishes. His average running position is always in the top 10. He's been really, really consistent here at this racetrack. You definitely want consistency. You want a good bounce back. And like you said, brand new package, someone who always is head and shoulders above everyone else when it comes to new tracks or new equipment. It's Joey Logano. So I totally agree with that pick. And another person that I agree with as being a top pick, let's go to the Chevrolets. Let's talk about a driver who came so close to winning the championship last year, so close to winning multiple races here at Phoenix. Let's talk about the number 1 of Ross Chastain. Really good run for him at Vegas, although I wish he would have done a little bit better. But Trackhouse has clearly shown that last year was not a fluke. They've been running super consistent, especially at Auto Club. Ross Chastain did an amazing job. And here at Phoenix, he's shown his consistency. A 3rd place finish and a 2nd place finish in the last 2 races here with an average running position of 9th. That is actually really, really good. That means throughout the entire race, he was running around the 9th position, scoring stage points. That's including going down pit road on green flag pit stops. So that's very impressive to have. And with stats like that, it's really hard to go away from Ross Chastain. He showed a lot of consistency at the beginning of the year last year. It looks like he's doing the same thing. Ross Chastain stays to me as a top pick. Do you like that pick, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I do feel like overall at shorter tracks last year, Ross wasn't one of the best to me. Now, again, he was good at Phoenix. Like if you're looking at a shorter track that he was good at, it definitely was Phoenix. But you look at New Hampshire, he wasn't really a factor. Richmond races, he really wasn't a factor. I love him at any intermediate track. Absolutely. I think he scores a lot of points. But I do like, you brought up some good data, and especially you have the data to back it up at Phoenix. So I don't love the pick, but I don't mind it. I don't mind the pick.
I think it's fair, though, to compare it to New Hampshire and Richmond. Those are low banking tracks. This is a high bank racetrack, similar to other intermediate tracks. And I can't quite remember how he did at Bristol. That was like the last thing on my mind on whether or not Ross Chastain was doing good in that race. I was focusing on the drivers who weren't in the chase winning it, or the Toyotas just blowing up left and right. But I felt like at high bank tracks, he was doing really good. So I don't really want to compare that to New Hampshire. And Martinsville, you got to remember, the Hail Melon, he's going to do something absolutely crazy to move up front if the time is right. Obviously, you can't do that now, but hey, I still say that's a good performance right there. No one's ever going to forget it. That is for sure.
No, that's true. I mean, that's definitely true. But again, I mean, like, what position was he running? Like 10th?
That's still worth stage points. That's still as a contender.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think it's going to be a good run for him. I really think he's going to be contender when it's all said and done. So now we got a Ford. We got a Chevrolet. Why don't we conclude all the manufacturers, include a Toyota right here? We got a good few contenders here that could take this spot, but I still think once again the top Toyota going into this weekend is Denny Hamlin, the number 11. Another racetrack where he's super consistent at. In the last 8 races, he's only had 2 finishes outside the top 10. One of those races was really rough, unfortunately. That was the 2020 race. But besides that race, very consistent, led quite a few laps, especially in the fall race of 2019 where he led 143 laps, won the race, finished third in both the races in 2021, and just showing consistency in the right direction. And this was during a time beginning last year where he could not get any luck on his side, and he was still able to finish 13th in this race. Although not super impressive, I still think Denny Hamlin has been the strongest Toyota out of the bunch, and he should still be considered a top pick for many.
Fair. I'm with you. I think Hamlin's definitely a top pick. I think he's going to perform well. I think he's an easy top 10 candidate. I think there's no doubt about that.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. I appreciate that. Not too much debate. So we got Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin. We got 2 more spots here for top picks. So Armani, who are we forgetting? Who else should be up here?
Well, Armani is not on the podcast.
Johnny, oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to have to edit that one out. I'm sorry. I don't know where I got that from.
If Armani was here, I assume Armani would say, probably not, but look, I like Bowman in this spot, to be honest with you.
Bowman.
And I have not been, over the course of I don't know, the last few years, I've not been the biggest Bowman guy and Bowman supporter. But I'll tell you this, Tyler, I think at this point we have to talk. When we look at best crew chiefs in the Cup Series right now, I think Blake Harris is a name that has to come to mind. We saw what he did for Michael McDowell last year. I mean, like, they put together a really, really solid season. He moves to the 48 team and Alex Bowman, and I don't think it's a surprise that Alex Bowman has started. I think he's number 2 in overall points. He's got 3 top 10s. He is right there. It doesn't matter on the Clash, he was fast. At the Super Speedway, he was fast. At the Intermediate Las Vegas, he was fast. He was fast at Auto Club. He's put together a diverse resume to start. And the last thing that's kind of lacking right now is, I guess, one of these tweener tracks, right? The 1 mile tracks. You talk about the higher banking 1 mile. I like him here. I like his crew chief. I think he's going to have a really good run and continue that momentum.
Actually has the second most points here in the season so far in these first 3 races. 126 points. Only person beating him right now is Ross Chastain. So Blake Harris has been a great add-on for this 48 team. And although maybe not running for victories quite yet, still showing super consistency. And hey, if you expect him to be running around the top 5 throughout the entire race, that's a top pick. I don't care what anyone says. And if there's a mistake that happens with the leaders, you know Alex Bowman's going to be there. That's just something he's always been able to do. When something happens, Alex Bowman comes out of nowhere and he's able to take the victory. So I appreciate the number 48 pick being a top pick, and I like people really using Alex Bowman here early in the season because he could be one of those drivers that does fantastic here in the first half, but maybe not at the same level going through the summer stretch. Now, that's not a guarantee, but when someone has consistency, you want to use them as much as they can because typically it's usually not just one race, it's for multiple races. And Alex Bowman has been showing it. And by the way, it's also his home track. 1 more spot left. I have 2 people here. A big name is going to miss out here on the top 10. That just shows how many potential candidates could win this race. I have a Chevrolet on mine. I really do. But I think it's best to push him off to the side for now. I think some people may be upset by it, but we got to include Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick is just a top pick. 19 straight attempts, I do believe, is the statistic that he has finished in the top 10. How can you argue with that? Someone that consistent running up front at this racetrack, by far his favorite racetrack. I'd say he's the master at this track. Even when he's struggling in the season, he is still able to put on a good performance here at Phoenix. I think you have to throw Harvick on here just as a safety net for whatever happens. Expect him to be finishing in the top 10. Johnny, I'm hoping that his streak does not end here this weekend, but based on what we've seen here throughout the start of 2023, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, no dispute at all. I'm in total alignment there with you. I got a 2, I think almost a 2.5 unit bet that he's going to score a top 10. It doesn't win you much money. But I think it's just one of those things where you can bank on it. I think now, I don't know. I don't mean to put this out of our favor, but I believe the stat is Okay, yeah, so you said 19. That's probably right. I have here he hasn't finished outside the top 10 since 2013. So if he does it again, I mean, that's going to be 10 straight. That's 10 years of
Yes.
top 10s for a track that they've run twice, multiple, a lot of years. So, yeah, easy pick. Absolutely.
And not only that, remember, it was a completely different reconfiguration a few years back. So even though it's basically a brand new track, he still has been running super consistent. And if you guys still don't believe me, in the last 10 races, ninth or better. And also, out of those 10 races, 5 of them have been top 5 finishes. I mean, hands down, it's going to be a great pick to go with Harvick. So those are our top picks here. We have the number 22 of Joey Logano, the number 1 of Ross Chastain, the number 11 of Denny Hamlin, the number 48 of Alex Bowman, and the number 4 of Kevin Harvick. Now we will move on to the top 10 list. These are the drivers you want as your third, fourth, and fifth picks for your fantasy group. And a lot of good candidates here to go with. I mean, I'm just looking at this list and you would almost consider them top picks. So this is going to be really, really tough to kind of really try to figure out which drivers are going to be top 5 and which drivers are going to be top 10. I think we did really good as far as the top picks go, but the rest of the top 10 still solid drivers. I got to get this one out of the way. Kyle Larson, driver of the number 5, has to be right here. He is borderline top pick in the top 10, especially after that great finish he had at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, this close from getting the victory, so close, and unfortunately just a late race caution took that opportunity away. But look here at Phoenix, he has always been really good at this racetrack. The only bad finish he had was last year in the spring race. I'm trying to remember what exactly happened, but even then he led laps, had an average running position of 14th, so even though he wrecked out, he was still able to have that average running position. Just shows you how consistent he was running up front. I think if he stays out of trouble, he's going to be right there in that mix, and you know that he's hunting for that victory, especially being that close at Las Vegas.
I like that pick. I think Larson is a very good pick. I think you're right. It's a lot of the Logano thing. I'm picking Logano because he DNF'd and he's coming to a track that he's had a lot of success at. You look at Larson, he should have won basically and ended up getting kind of screwed. I think there is that little kind of sort of revenge factor there. And I think Larson, I don't know, I think in that case, I do see Larson bouncing back and having another good run. Guy I'll add here, I don't know if it's my turn, but I'm going to do it.
Oh, it's your turn. Go ahead.
I like Blaney. I do like Blaney, and I haven't loved him this season. He's had decent cars, bad luck, but he was the best car at this race last year, like kind of by a mile. At really, he led like over 150 laps, I believe. Now I could be wrong. Maybe it was he led over 100 laps. I know that he was a very, very strong car. And then at the end, the only car in the championship race that he wasn't better than was Joey Logano. So you've got 2 sets of data right there to show that Ryan Blaney was a top car at this track. I would say, I don't want to say he blew the first race, but he definitely should have won the first race. I mean, he was the best car. Didn't do it. And then the second race, again, if Logano's not there, he's the winner. So I think Blaney feels that. I think he's going to come back here and have another good car. Again, it's not been bad cars really this year for Blaney. It's been just kind of bad luck. And, I don't know, not being at the wrong spot at the right time, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes.
So I think Blaney's a good go here.
And maybe that's why we're kind of falling off just a tad bit on him. We still think he can run really well at this race. We just don't know if he's going to be able to finish. And that's just a nightmare that drivers have to deal with sometimes. And Blaney's been one of those ones, especially at the end of 2022. And you were right. He's led 100-plus laps in both of the races here last year. And then the year before that, 30-plus laps in each of those, both of them being top 10s. So average running position being 5th, and hell, the championship race, his average running position was 2nd. Just shows you how good he was. He's definitely going to be running good here. We're just in that fear on if he can close it out. I don't know if you got to be too worried about it, but if you want to feel safer, if it was like between Kevin Harvick and Ryan Blaney. I feel like Ryan Blaney could finish better. He has a slightly higher ceiling than Kevin Harvick, but he also has a way bigger floor than Kevin Harvick. So it's a concerning one, but I think for the most part, people are going to lean towards Ryan Blaney. So there we go. Once again, Chevrolet and a Ford here to start us off. Let's include another Toyota. Johnny, I will give you this once again. I felt like I picked the last three before you picked Ryan Blaney, so I'm not going to keep stealing these spots from you. Give us a Toyota driver. That should be in the top 10.
I got Truex. Really the only data we have that is kind of, I don't know, similar to this style track was the Clash. And Truex was the best car at the Clash. Well, I mean, maybe you can make an argument that Kyle Busch was the best car, but Truex was one of the best cars, ended up being the winner there. Now, I know configuration is a lot different, but we're on a West Coast swing. We're on a West Coast road trip. So I feel like the car that they have to use is that car that, was used at the Clash, or at least like a baseline of what we saw at the Clash. Now, the thing that it gives me a little pause for concern is the new package and how this is going to run. But overall, if you're looking for a mid-tier Toyota, I think Truex is a good get. He's been really, really efficient this season. I've liked what I've seen. I feel like it's a little bit of a revenge tour for Martin Truex after having a consistent season last year, but no wins. So I do think Truex is going to win one, if not a couple races this year in terms of the regular season. And honestly, don't be surprised if it comes here to start.
Yeah, you know what? There was another driver that could have been a little bit slightly ahead, but you're making a good point with the LA Clash. Again, not the same configuration by a long shot, but shorter tracks. Typically, the cars that are running up front there will be running up front at shorter racetracks throughout the season. And Martin Truex Jr., he definitely has a lot to prove this year, especially after last year, where he was not able to get a victory throughout the season. So he wants to bounce back. And what we've seen so far here at the beginning of the season has shown signs that, hey, maybe that momentum starting to come back to him. And this was also a driver who was the king of short tracks just a couple years ago. I think last year it was just an off season for him, but everything before that just super impressive. So maybe this will be a chance for him to bounce back, because 2022 he finished 15th and 35th, but the year before he finished 2nd and 1st at Phoenix Raceway. So two more drivers here on this list. Again, more really good drivers here. I think we'll end it on Chevrolets here, because these two have a lot of momentum going into this race and also some good results in the past. Let's first start off with the number 8 of Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has not been really a contender for the victory here at Phoenix Raceway the last 3 years. Now, granted, that was with Joe Gibbs Racing, but he has been consistently running around in the top 10. Last 3 finishes in a row, 7th, 7th, and 7th. And then in 2020, he had an 11th place finish and a 3rd place finish. Now, before that, he was dominant. 2nd place, 1st place, 1st place, 2nd place. I don't know if that's going to be the Kyle Busch we see here. You can definitely tell that he is feeling really comfortable with RCR. I'm pretty sure if he doesn't smack the wall at Las Vegas early in the race, he was going to run more up front. Just didn't work out for him. But with that being said, here with this A team, I've seen a good blend. He's really impressed me so far, and he should definitely be considered like a number 3, number 4 pick here for this weekend. Even though he's the 4th one on this list, it's still a really good driver.
No debate. No debate at all. I think we saw what we did. Again, it's not apples to apples, but it's fruit to fruit from what we saw with the Clash and what I think we're going to see at Phoenix. Kyle Busch had a damn good car at the Clash. And you laid out kind of, his success, recent success, I would say, at this track. I think he's going to be good. I think he's a good pick. And I think he's going to be a continued good pick throughout the course of the season. I'm very high on Kyle Busch. I would love if he wins, because I had my bet was over 1.5 wins for Kyle Busch this season. He's already halfway there, so I'll take that.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be close, but definitely at this point, after seeing his win at Auto Club, it's like, oh yeah, he's really good. And to close us out here with our top 10 picks, we got to include last week's winner. So much momentum, very consistent here at this racetrack as far as trying to finish in the top 10, William Byron. Now, I don't think he's going to be running for the victory. I feel very confident that he will not be running for the win. So we're not going to have a back-to-back winner, I feel it. With that being said, multiple top 10 finishes in the last 6 races, 4 of them being top 10s, average running position around the top 7, which is really, really good. In the spring race, unfortunately, he finished 18th, but he led 12 laps in that race, had a really good car. He also ran into some bad luck similar to Kyle Larson. I think with getting this win, we saw it last year. They did really good in the first 12 or so races. It could be something similar. I hope not. But right now, everything is looking like William Byron should be a reliable pick here for this weekend and will not let people down.
Yeah, I mean, I think your best argument is we're kind of seeing a little similar thing to what he did last year, which was start off hot. But by the summer months, he was nowhere to be found. So I feel if he can keep the momentum, I think he's a championship contender. I really think he is. But if we see what we saw last year with Byron, it's going to be just another one of those years where you feel like you have a good understanding of where to take him and days to completely fade him. Today, Sunday, I like the momentum. I like the run he and his team have been on. I like, again, resorting back to last year. He started off hot. He looks like he's starting off hot again. Maybe that's just the kind of guy he is. Comes out and, when he gets cold, he gets cold. He has not got cold yet. So in that case, I would stick with William Byron.
I agree. Well, of course, I'm going to agree. That was my thought on including them there. But I see what you mean right there. So those are our top 10 picks here. Lots of good drivers here to choose from. It's going to be tough to find out which ones you want to go with. But the biggest thing that we're starting to see here is you want drivers who are going to be running for the championship. That's what we're getting right here. And if that's not the case, drivers that we have seen run really, really good in the first 5 or 6 races. And those drivers being Kyle Larson in the number 5. You also have Ryan Blaney in the number 12, the number 19 of Martin Truex Jr., the number 8 of Kyle Busch, and the number 24 of William Byron. Now we move on to the final category. These are drivers you want to take a gamble on. Although you might not see them every single weekend as top drivers, this weekend might be head and shoulders above the other races that we'll be going to. And great options here. There's quite a few drivers that are on my mind. Obviously, I want to have Johnny go first because he has a few drivers that he feels like will be great gambles to take on. Johnny, you always make good bets. Which drivers are you betting on?
I'll give you 2, and I'll run through them fairly quickly, but let me give you 2. The first guy I like is Brad Keselowski. Man, it's been a resurgence year for RFK. Well, look, we're through, we're only through a few races so far, but it looks to be like it's a resurgence year for Brad Keselowski and RFK. Both cars right now in the top, 16 in the points and look pretty good. They had speed at Auto Club. They had speed at Vegas. They were the fastest cars at the super speedways. They weren't great at the Clash, but they weren't great at the Clash last year. And actually, these shorter tracks, they were good. You look at Chris Buescher, he won. Brad Keselowski, very good at Richmond and New Hampshire. These style tracks, they were good, this team. So I think there's a lot to build on right now with RFK. They were bad last year. Let's put it at, how we saw it. This year, it looks like Brad Keselowski has maybe figured something out. And if there's a guy, and I've said this now for the past 2 years, if there's a guy you don't want to count out, it's a guy like Brad Keselowski. There's a couple guys, right? Logano, Keselowski, Kyle Busch. They're just guys that, you do not want to count them out. And Brad Keselowski, to me, is a guy that you don't want to count out. The next guy to take a gamble on, it's been the opposite, really, from the Brad Keselowski thing, and this is Chase Briscoe. He's been really bad this year, coming off a good, not a great, but a good season last year. This was your winner at this race last year, Chase Briscoe. This was a top 5 car at this race in the championship race. So do I love what I've seen from Chase Briscoe? No, not at all. They've been bad, and it's frustrating because I thought the matchup, or I should say the pairing of he and Johnny Klossmeyer is a good pairing. But from what I've seen so far with Stewart-Haas Racing and that team in particular, I do not like it. And here, let me lay this out really quickly. Harvick has been good at all the tracks. Wherever we've went, Harvick has been, a top 10 contender. Almirola was good at the Clash. He was good at the super speedways. Saw a little bit of flashes on him on the intermediates, but nothing special, right? But he did show flashes at both the Clash and the Super Speedway. Priest, same thing. Clash, Super Speedway looked good. It's been a little bit unlucky, but you saw flashes. Briscoe,
Nothing.
you haven't seen him anywhere.
No,
I mean,
you haven't.
he's been in the back of the pack running with the JJ Yaleys of the world. Don't want to ever include BJ McLeod in there because we'll see him soon. We're not going to put his name in there, but we're going to put the JJ Yaleys of the world. So look, the segment is, or it's who we can take a gamble on, and I think you have to take a gamble on Chase Briscoe because if there's ever a track that you can kind of get out of your slump, get out of your funk at, it's this track right here for Briscoe. So I got to go with those two guys.
I like both of them. Definitely a night and day situation with Brad Keselowski. I think if you were to ask me if we saw Brad Keselowski's final win and it was back with the number 2 car, I would have said yes. In the middle of 2022, I would have said, yeah, I don't think Brad Keselowski's going to win another race. That has immediately changed. Things have been figured out over there at RFK, and Brad Keselowski is no longer a top 20, top 25 maybe driver. He is now consistently running around the top 10. Maybe it's not for victories yet at this time, but I don't think it's going to be that much longer. I would not be surprised if he is a front runner and gets the victory at Talladega, but it's not just the super speedways now. We have seen them do really good at multiple types of racetracks, and here in the first 4 weeks, you see 4 different racetracks, and they've been good at all of them, so I'm kind of excited for that one. Chase Briscoe, like you said, a victory, a 4th place finish. I think for Chase Briscoe at this point, we want to hope that he does well. We really do. But he might be a driver that we have to keep an eye on in practice and qualifying. I think that will be a big factor on whether or not we want to go with him. And I hate to say that, but at the same time, hasn't shown us anything. We've just seen good finishes in the past. A couple more drivers to take a gamble on here that we should really consider. One being the number 20 of Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell has had some top 10 finishes here at this racetrack. I thought of him as more as a top 10 pick, but like Johnny said, Martin Truex Jr. has done really good at races like this in the past. Just last year was not a good run for him. This year seems to already be starting off a lot better. But Christopher Bell should be right there in that mix. I don't think he's going to be running for the victory. I think he's going to be flirting with the top 10. So that's why he's considered a bit of a garage pick, in my personal opinion. And then the last 2 spots, I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to have Johnny close it out. But we got to include, if we're going to include Chase Briscoe, if we're going to include these Fords, I think we got to include another Stewart-Haas racing car. And that's got to be the number 10 of Eric Almirola. He let us down, unfortunately, at Auto Club, but Eric Almirola has shown that consistency. He really has. I know that Johnny's going to be really happy about that pick, and there's a good reason why. Just decent runs. The team is not struggling nearly as bad as they were last year or the year before. So I see signs that Eric Almirola is going to be running really good in this race. A 6th place finish in the fall of 2021 and an 8th place finish at 2020. All right, Johnny, I see you going nuts. You've muted your mic. I appreciate that. Tell us what you have to say about that.
Well, I've got my Eric Almirola signed diecast right here.
Yeah.
The beautiful Smithfield card here. Look, I love it. I think it's a great pick. He has been at this style track. Eric Almirola has been very good the last 2 years, and I think a lot of people forget, especially Armani, who's not on the podcast. People have thought he has been on the podcast today with a mix-up of names.
My bad.
But what I will say is people forget, like, Eric Almirola has made the playoffs a lot with Stewart-Haas Racing. Look, last year wasn't the best year for them, but Eric Almirola kind of has built his career on consistency. Unfortunately, not really winning, but nonetheless, consistency. He's been proved to be a top 15 driver the last 5. Really, his course at Stewart-Haas Racing. So I like him here. I like him in this spot. And do I have one more pick?
Yes, we got one more pick. Yep, we're going to give it to you. We're going to close it out. We've talked about 4 drivers to take a gamble on. It's been Brad Keselowski, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, Eric Almirola, one more driver. Or did you want to talk about Christopher Bell real quick?
Well, I have nothing ever to say bad about Christopher Bell. He's one of my favorite drivers. He was I don't know, not great here. Both races last year, not bad, not great. But I think Bell, I don't know, Bell at this point has shown that to me he's the lead guy at Joe Gibbs Racing. I know a lot of people want to still say Denny Hamlin, but to me it's been Christopher Bell this past year, I would say. So if you're looking for a JGR car to kind of rise above, usually what we've seen is recently it's been Christopher Bell. So I'm in agreement there. I think he's going to be a good pick for anybody who takes him. The last guy, I'm going to go with the quad here, the quadruple pick for Stewart-Haas Racing. I'm going to add Ryan Preece's name. When I talked to his crew chief, what was this? When he was still in the 37 car, they were so excited to get to Phoenix.
Yeah.
Ryan Preece, believe it or not, enjoys this racetrack. And now what we've seen, look, he's had bad luck, but what we've seen to start this year is the car has had decent speed at points. And when you have a guy that's had not the best of luck, to me, go to a track now that he feels comfortable and confident at, like Ryan Preece, I feel like there could be something here. I feel like maybe we're going to see a top 10 run for Ryan Preece. And I like the Fords across the board. I think Ford is going to be very strong and powerful here this weekend. And I think a name that's swooping under the radar here is Ryan Preece. We saw what he did at the Busch Clash, people. At these shorter tracks, these 1 mile tracks and less, this is a guy that's built a career racing on a track like this. So I like Ryan Preece here. He's always been good. Again, we're not comparing apples to apples here, but Bristol, he's always been good at. Martinsville, he's had good runs at. So shorter tracks, Ryan Preece tends to shine. I like him here. I like him in this spot, especially given a chance in that 41 car. This is really the first of the shorter tracks we're going to get to see. So if it's truly a strength of his, and we're going to see him, make some noise this season, it's got to come this weekend to me.
You know what? That's very interesting. Not the pick. I'm really glad. I do like Ryan Preece as well. He's going to be interesting. If he does really good at this race and he continues to show consistency at 1 mile less racetracks, it's almost going to remind me as one of the next Rusty Wallace. Now, Rusty Wallace got 55 victories, and Ryan Preece is still yet to get his first victory here. But what I'm trying to say was Rusty made his career at short tracks. Ryan Preece, he has made his career at short track. So if he has a good run here, we could expect it maybe at Dover. We could expect it at Richmond, New Hampshire, Bristol, Martinsville. That's 6-7 races right there. And some of those races we go to twice. So, yeah, Ryan Preece could be an interesting factor here at these types of races, and I'm willing to take a gamble on him as well. What I was going to say was, the one interesting thing was the only team that we picked every single driver was Stewart-Haas Racing. And in 2023, that's actually kind of weird to say, especially after the luck that they've had the last couple of years. So I bet that they feel pretty happy that us two decided to throw all 4 of Stewart-Haas Racing cars on there. Wouldn't you agree?
Very true. I was not expecting that. But again, I'm high on Fords this weekend. So I don't think, honestly, it's going to be out of the question.
Yeah, and I hope you are right. And based on these picks, it looks like it's going to be a Ford weekend for sure. So those are the drivers in the take a gamble category. We have the number 6 of Brad Keselowski, the number 14 of Chase Briscoe, the number 20 of Christopher Bell, the number 10 of Eric Almirola, and the number 41 of Ryan Preece. And those, ladies and gentlemen, were our 15 drivers. 21 drivers, they missed the cut, and they are not considered fantasy picks here. I'll run through them real quickly and quickly explain why. The number 2 of Austin Cindric doesn't make the cut. I think his teammates are going to do great, but he has been the 3rd strongest car. Still a really young driver. Needs some time. 2022, decent finishes, best finish being 11th. I think we need one more good finish out of him at Phoenix before we feel confident in taking a gamble on him. Austin Dillon, best finish here in the last 4 years, has only been a 13th place finish. I expect him more running around the 15th position. Do not really think he's going to have a spectacular run. He's going to be consistent, but not really worth fantasy value. Corey LaJoie, great start to the year so far for Spire Motorsports. He had his best finish here in the most recent race at Phoenix with an 18th place finish. However, it is still an 18th place finish, still not worth fantasy value. We will sit him out at this time. Josh Berry, great that he's coming back in for another week for this number 9 car. I don't like replacement drivers in fantasy spots, and unfortunately, that's where Josh Berry is. He'll probably do good in the Xfinity Series race, but the Cup race, I really don't count on him being a top runner. The number 15 of J.J. Yaley, hey, 15 car has shown slight improvement, but still... Oh, no, it's not J.J. Yaley. It's Todd Gilliland, actually, in the 15 car. I forgot. Todd Gilliland's driving that number 15 car. With that still being said, I still think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for them. I don't expect a spectacular run out of him. If he's able to finish 25th, then that is a spectacular day. But we're not putting drivers like that on our fantasy roster for 25th place. AJ Allmendinger, I expect a top 20 finish out of him, but not really a top 10. Then we go to the number 17 of Chris Buescher. One top 10 here in the last 5 years, and that was at the spring race of last year, but his average running position was 18th. So it was near the end when he was running around the top 10. Don't really feel too confident about that. Harrison Burton, they're still trying to figure things out. It's been a struggle for Harrison Burton in that 21 car. I really hope they start figuring stuff out, but still not in a spot to count on. The number 23 of Bubba Wallace comes up next, and one top 10 in the last 5 years, but that was back in 2018. So lately he's been around a 22nd place finishing car. Yeah, I don't like that at all. The number 31 of Justin Haley comes up next. Best finish only being a 17th place finish. He usually runs around outside the top 20, so it's not going to be a strong run for him. The number 34, Michael McDowell, he's in the same spot as Justin Haley. They're going to be running around the same position. I'm hoping that Michael McDowell actually gets some better finishes. I know he lost his crew chief to Alex Bowman, and you can see that it is showing here in that 34 car. Hopefully they can turn things around, but man, it has been a rough start. The number 38, not Todd Gilliland, but Zane Smith. Excited to see Zane Smith jump into this car, see what he can do. Did really good in the Truck Series race. With that being said, the 38 car is not the strongest car at Front Row Motorsports, so I'm not expecting a spectacular finish out of him. If he is able to get a top 20, then Zane Smith will definitely be taking over this 38 car next year. I feel it. But for now, we're going to keep an eye on him, but we're not going to put him in our fantasy spot. The number 42 of Noah Gragson, he let us down at Vegas. I was hoping for a great race by him, and it just shows these rookies have a lot to learn. Even though they did spectacular in the Xfinity Series, they're just not at the same spot as these other drivers. So we'll sit him out for now. The number 43 of Eric Jones comes up next, best finish being a 14th place finish in the last 3 years. Not too confident about that. Yeah, he did good at Darlington last year to get the victory, but you can't really compare Phoenix to Darlington. That's too much of a stretch right there. The number 45, Tyler Reddick, starting to get some momentum in the right direction. Still trying to figure it out with that team. That blend is still trying to get all the creases figured out. So give him time. It's just not yet for that number 45 car. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the number 47. I think we'll start considering him for super speedways for sure, but here at the short tracks where his best finish has been 12th the last 5 years, I don't expect him to do leaps and bounds better, especially now that we've seen the last couple of finishes for him have not really been around the top 10. Cody Ware in the number 51, his best finish has been 28th in the last 3 years. We'll just move on from that. The number 54, Ty Gibbs, he's in the same spot as Noah Gragson. I hope he does a little better than Noah Gragson. I feel like he could, but still, I don't think it's going to be top 10 value. Maybe top 15. That would be a good run, but I don't expect anything more from that. The number 77 of Ty Dillon comes up next. A couple of 15th place finishes, nothing better than that. And with a slower team, I think it's best to move on. The number 78 of BJ McLeod, his best finish has been a 27th place finish in the last couple of years. Hopefully he can get something like that again, but still not fantasy value. And then we will end on the number 99 of Daniel Suarez. He had a great run at Las Vegas. I'll give him that. And he had a 9th place finish here in the spring race. There's just something just not quite there yet for the number 99 team that I consider them a top 10 running driver. I expect him running around the top 15, sure, but I feel like the other drivers we mentioned here, Chase Briscoe, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell, they have a much bigger ceiling than Daniel Suarez. I think at best Daniel Suarez can finish 9th. These drivers at best they can finish 6th, maybe 5th, score some stage points. So maybe it's best to sit him out, but we're not going to sit him out for that long because there are some races that I feel very confident in that number 99 machine. And ladies and gentlemen, that was all 36 drivers on the entry list here for the United Rentals 500. And that will conclude today's fantasy picks, guys. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a really fun episode, kind of a longer episode. We had a lot of news to talk about. We really went into depth with drivers, and that's the great thing of having guests on here. We've had Armani for the last couple of episodes, which I'm very appreciative of, but we've been missing out on Johnny. Johnny has been giving us some good takes here and there. Some takes have been interesting, but that's why we love having him on the show. So Johnny, thank you so much for coming on today. We do greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Too much. Look, this show has had to deal with too much Armani. I apologize for the viewers, for the listeners. They can go listen to the Motorsports Ministry. If they want to listen to him, they probably don't, because they probably don't want to.
Whoa, hold on. We can't bag on our guests, man. You can only bag on yourself, and you can bag on me because I'm hosting the show. Don't do that to Armani. You should listen to the Motorsports Ministry podcast. You really should. But where can we find you, Johnny?
Should. I mean, you can. I mean, you definitely can. I mean, if you want to listen to bad takes, I mean, you definitely
Where can we find you, Johnny? Leave my guests alone.
No, shout out Armani. Hopefully we'll get the three of us on a show together soon. That'd be fun. You can find me on Johnny on the Track on YouTube, Johnny on the Track on Action Network. If you want to find me on Twitter, that's at JOTT_podcast. All my bets are on all those platforms. We got the betting preview show that goes live Tuesday night on YouTube. And definitely give me a follow on Action Network, because if anything goes post-qualifying, any bets go post-qualifying and post-practice, that's where I get to put those in. So, give me a follow. Appreciate being on. Always a pleasure. I was the first guest on this podcast. Yeah, I get to always keep that. That to my name.
Yes, you were. And now we're keep getting guests on here, and I think it's really made the show stronger. It showed in the numbers. I've greatly appreciated everybody coming on here. And yes, Armani also gives Johnny a little bit of grief here and there. So I think they're even. Honestly, I'm giving Johnny grief right now, but they're even right now. And for me on social media, you know where to find me at. Just look up Vanilla Wafers. I will pop up on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. YouTube, fantastic growth so far. People have been loving the episodes that we've been doing there, NASCAR related. Next episode going to be coming up here. I think I'm going to be talking about recent driver injuries and what it led to. I was starting to look more into it. Like Chase Elliott, this is a very, very shocking situation. But at the same time, we have seen injuries like this in the past, and how much of a factor it has played out. It will change some of the seasons. You would not believe it. So I'm going to cover a few stories on that one. Hopefully you guys get an opportunity to see it. TikTok, I'm posting daily videos. Still have not found Mario Andretti, but I feel confident that we will. NASCAR therapy sessions, you guys have loved it. So a lot of people mentioned that to me down at Las Vegas. For everyone I got to meet, thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate you. And if you want to talk to me during race day, ask questions, reach out to me on Twitter. I do my best to reach out back to you guys as soon as I can. It's always a lot of fun to talk to you guys during race day. So that will conclude today's episode, guys. I have been your host, Vanilla Wafers, and I have led you to the front of the field. So why don't we grab that checkered flag, do some burnouts, and head on out. So you all take care. This has been the Fantasy Filler Podcast.